this is Kim from CustomDollBaby.com. Today we're working on Amelina. Amelina is a portrait doll based on a picture of a real baby. Today we are working on her blushing, and this is not a blush wash, but her actual accent blushing. So as you can see, she already has many layers of mottling. We've added several layers of flesh tone on top of that mottling. She's got veining, and I've also created a special purplish reddish blend for her shading and creases. So all of that is complete. It's looking really great. Now we're going to add that accent blushing to really bring out some of the cute features in this doll. So I like to start on the bottom of the feet. What we have here is a custom blush blend made of Genesis red, Pyro red, a little ultramarine blue, and probably some other stuff that I actually don't remember. I sometimes forget when I'm creating these mixtures. We have a nice dark blood red color here. One nice thing to keep in mind about blushing is if your paint looks a lot like blood, you're probably in good shape. We're not going to put it on very thick though, so make sure that you wring it out of your brush or dab it off on a paper towel so that there's not a whole lot of paint being applied to the doll. I'm going to start with the bottom of the feet, and I actually add my blush in multiple layers. So I like to dab a blushing color around the edge of the foot and the tips of the toes. Okay, so that looks pretty awful right now. We need to blend that in. I use a fluff sponge to blend it in, and this sponge in particular I've actually used so many times that it's so saturated with pigment I could paint with just the sponge itself. I wouldn't even really need to add paint to it. So this is great because instead of pulling the paint off of the doll, it's just helping us to spread it around a bit. So that's what we're going to do to even out the color here. I'm trying very hard not to shake the camera while I do this. Okay. So this doll is very heavily creased in the feet, which is super cute. I love that about this sculpt. This is Donna Ribbert's Samantha kit. But the creases give us a little bit of a hard time when we're painting because the paint has a tendency to accumulate there. Not a problem, just grab your favorite dry brush. This is a 1/4-inch mop that I like to use. It's actually got a little pink tint to it because I use it specifically for smoothing out my blushing. And we're just going to buff that excess paint out of those creases, and especially make sure that we're wrapping the paint neatly around the toes. Also use that to blend into the areas where we didn't place blushing so that we have a very smooth finish and a very gradual gradient of color. That's the first layer. You can bake that before you add to it. I find that I can still get a nice accumulation of pigment by painting it while it's still wet, like we do when we're mottling. So I'm actually going to go back over what I call the 3 points. We're going to make a nice little triangle here. There's a point under the big toe, under the pinky toe, and the heel. Makes a nice little triangle, and we're going to blend that in on top of the color that we just added. The goal is to create extra rosy colors in those spots. It looks very sweet on a baby. Now if you notice that the areas that you didn't blush are starting to look too white, no problem. You've got a sponge right here that's ready to go. So you can actually just use that to dab a little bit more color in between so you don't have that super bright differential between the blushed areas and the not blushed areas. She already has a blush wash, so we're not painting on just the flesh or weight or just the skin complexion. We do have some red pigment that we're adding to already on the doll. Where you blush and how you blush is a matter of personal preference. It's also a function of the sculpt. One thing that I like to do for dolls that have a lot of folds and fat rolls and things like that is I like to blush the top of those rolls, or the area between those folds, because you've already got that pretty purplish reddish tint in those folded areas, and it looks very nice to add the blushing color, the blushing reds right in between those, so you get a very nice gradient. And actually skip this middle part, it's looking too light, so I'm going to add just a teeny bit there as well. Notice I haven't added any more paint to my brush just yet because it's high pigmentation and very little paint. We don't want it to be super bright or super dark. You always want to blush the knees, regardless of the sculpt. Rosy knees are always cute, just like rosy cheeks are always cute. So I'm going to blend that in, and I'm going to try to get it down in the creases too. We want an even color here. You can even use the brush to sweep it out. Sponge, sorry. And you can use your dry brush to blend it into the surrounding area as well. So now I have my first coat of blush on the knee. And then, like the feet, I like to go back and add just a little bit more to a few key spots. So I really like this center of the knee and this first fat roll right around it. So this is where I'm going to add additional layers of color, so it really, really makes the shape of the doll pop. And again, use very, very minimal paint because you do not want to overdo the blushing. It's extremely difficult to get off once you put it on the doll. So you want to be as certain as possible that you're landing it where you want it and the concentration that you want it in, which is why it's great to add it in layers. Let's add a little bit under the knee where the skin is folding. This area as well. I'm going to get the calf area, and I just made a circle there right down the middle. Then I can use this spread across the back of the calf, which is very sweet as well. And because this kit has so many of these lovely little wrinkles and folds, and I like to paint around these too. So I'm going to just enter into these areas and bring it all the way back to the thigh. So we've kind of got a comb shape here. Start dabbing where the color is most concentrated, because that will start to stain and stick and you don't want it to be too dark. And then gradually blend it out into the surrounding areas. You can use your sponge to blend, you can use a brush to blend. And the goal is to have a seamless transition between the area that you blushed and the area that you did not blush. Okay, so this is the first layer of blushing. I'm going to keep going on this limb until it's as rosy as I would like for it to be. Please check out the blog